Name the time signature number 2. So we have 6 examples here, and the point is to break it apart and figure out which time signature fits best. More than one might fit, or only one might fit. So maybe pause the video if you want to, and maybe try to figure out some of this, and then I'm going to start revealing it. Okay, let's start working it out. So let's think about quarter notes first. I kind of glance at this and see, seems like quarter notes would probably fit in that. The one thing right here is the triplet note. That might be a little confusing, but a triplet note is just taking the space of 2 eighth notes and putting 3 notes there. So this still counts as your 1 and sort of placeholder, but there's 3 notes there now. Okay, so if we write it out like we'd be counting it, then if you remember, our dotted note is 1.5, so we have 1.5 of these. And this is kind of interesting. I just kind of want to break this down because it's a little confusing sometimes if you haven't broken it down yet. We're going to land our beat. It's going to go, since we have 3 beats, and since we're going to break this down into eighth notes, let's say. Eighth notes, we have our 1 and 2 and, so we have our note, we have our number, and then we have the and. So we have the middle of the beat as well. So that's why we have 1, 2, and. But then this is going to have 3 of those. So we have 3 and then it lands on the beginning of the 4th beat, 4. And then this is and, which ends that. So we actually do have 4 right there in the first measure. Second measure, I like to count triplets as 2 and a. So we have 1, 2 and a, that's just 2. And then this is 2 beats, so 3 and then 4. So we have 4 there and we have 4 there. Common time, okay. And if you saw my Name the Time Signature video 1, then you remember that your 4-4 and your 2-2 both work, and they're both pretty good descriptions of what we see here. Okay, so let's look at the next one. You know, I'm glancing at it again. I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking this looks like it might be quarter notes. Because at a glance, that kind of looks like it would add up. That looks like it evenly adds up. That all adds up. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, so again, we have another dotted note. So it's going to land on the 1 and 2. It's going to land on the beginning half of that second beat. So then this next one's going to complete that second beat. 1 and 2 and, which will lead us then to our third beat right there. So we have 3 beats. So it's looking like 3-4. Well, let's look at the next one. At a glance, it looks just like 3-4 again. This all adds up to 1. It's a 16th, 4/16 notes, so it's 1 E and is how we count it. That's just 1 beat. 2 and 2, 3. Okay, 3-4. And 3-4 is a simple triple. So we have 3 beats that can be evenly divided. And looking at it, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So we look at 6-8. 6-8 is a compound duple. So we have 2 pulses that can be divided into 3 beats. So that does not work here. And if I glance at number 3, I see a lot of eighth notes here. So I'm just going to go for eighth notes this time. Here's what happens when I count out my eighth notes. If you see the difference, when I count out my quarter notes, I count each quarter note as 1. So each eighth note becomes 2 and. But when I'm counting with my eighth notes, I count each eighth note as 1. So if I have a 16th note, my 16th note becomes my 1 and, 2 and. In this case, 4 and, 5 and. And I explained this in my first lesson, but also explain this in this one in case you didn't see it. When you see a dot and when you see a line, a half line, they cancel each other out. And why? This is because when you're looking at this note right here, this is 1.5 of these notes. It's 1.5. When you're splitting this note, you're cutting it in half. So now you have a half note. Well, 1.5 plus a half just equals 2. So mathematically, it cancels out. Rhythmically, no, of course, but mathematically, yes. So you don't have to really think about it too much. If you see the dot and then the half next to it, you can think, okay, well, those cancel each other out. So I just have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I can already see how it's counted. I have a 6, and again, it ends on a 6. So 6/8 notes gives me 6/8 time. So 6/8 is a compound duple. Compound meaning that each pulse can be split into 3 separate beats, and then duple meaning that there are 2 of those pulses containing the 3 beats. So let's look at that in context of here. So 1, 2, 3, that could be a first pulse. We have 3 right there. 4, 5, 6, that's another 3. Well, that's looking like 6/8 to me. And then here we have 1, 2, 3, and then we have 4, 5, 6. So as you can see, it maybe throws you off here, but that totally works. You see, it goes 1, 2, 3. You can split it still. 4, 5, 6. Just like this one up above. Maybe recap it if you didn't understand. It's a little confusing, but since it goes 1 and 2 and it starts on the 2, it actually ends right here on the and. So the 2 ends right here, and then you pick up your 3. So that's why this actually is 1, 2, 3 beats still, just has a sort of different rhythm. So again, if we double this, we have 12/16, and that just doesn't seem like something I'd really want to use. It doesn't seem very practical. We go to 3/4, if we cut it in half and lower it, well, that seems very common. So let's look at that in context of 3/4. 3/4 is our simple triple. So we have 3 beats that can be evenly divided into 2. So let's look at that here. Well, we have a group of 3, and then we have another group of 3. So already looking, that really doesn't work. And then if we look at right here, we'd have another group of 3. So if we look over here, that might look like, oh yeah, that'll work for 3/4, but when you actually dissect it a little more, no, because this first one might count as one actual, like 1/4 note. Right here, you already have half a quarter note, and then right here you have 1.5 quarter notes. So your beat would be 1, half, 1.5. Okay, so now moving on to the next one. I see eighth notes, I see quarter notes, and I see dotted quarter notes, so I'm going to go with quarter notes this time. Okay, so now if we write out how we'd count our quarter notes, we see that we have 5 here, and we have 5 here. Because again, if we're looking at quarter notes, our eighth notes become and. So since this is dotted, this would be about 3/8 notes. 3/8 notes would have our 1 and the beginning of the 2, and then that would leave out the other half of the 2, the and of the 2. It would only get the first half of that. Then this would land on the and of the 2, completing that second beat. Then we'd have our 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and we have the same dotted quarter note right here. So in both of these, we have 5. So 5 quarter notes, known as 5/4, is an irregular time. So our 5 quarter notes have a pulse of 3, then 2, or we have our dotted half note, then our half note. So if we look at that in context here, we could see where, okay, we have 1, 2, we have 3 beats, and then it stops, and then we have 4 and 5. So that would work here. Let's look here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 at the beginning of the fourth one, then we have and 5. First, that might kind of seem like, okay, whoa, so is it irregular anymore? Well, just break it down a little simply, just don't overthink it. We have 1 and 2 and. So that's a group of 2. Then we have 3 and 4 and, well, that's a group of 3. And remember I was saying in irregular time signatures, in my video, irregular time signatures, this could be that pattern either way. So it could be the 3 and 2, or it could be 2 and 3. If it doesn't specify, which I mean we don't have anything, we're the ones specifying it, it can flip vice versa. So it could do that in any measure. It could have 3, 2, the next measure can have 2, 3, it can have 2, 3 again, then it go back to 3, 2. It does not matter. So in this case, we do have a group of what looks like 3 here, then 2. And then next one, we have a group of 2, and then 3. So it's a little trickier. Okay, this next one has only 1 quarter note. So I'm going to think, okay, I'm just going to count eighth notes. So again, if we count in eighth notes, this is what it's going to look like. Our 16th note becomes our 4 and then our quarter note becomes 2 beats. So this one's kind of plain and simple looking at it. We have 7 beats, and we have 7 eighth notes, because we're looking at 8. So 7/8 is an irregular time signature, which has the pulse of 2 eighth notes, 2 eighth notes, and then 3 eighth notes in any order, or the actual pulse can be written like quarter note, dotted quarter note. So let's see if that works. Okay, so I see 1, 2, 3, 4, and I remember explaining in that irregular time signature that if the two pairs of 2 eighth notes, so you have 1, 2, 3, 4 eighth notes, are in the beginning or the end, it means they are next to each other. And if they are next to each other in a 7/8, that means it doesn't pass the very center, like in my beaming video I talk about, of the line. So since it doesn't pass the center of the measure that we're working with, it's irregular, it's uneven, we have 7. So we didn't pass the actual center. We can beam these, and if it ends, we can also beam them. So let's look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's our first 4 that are connected together. 1, 2, 3. That works 7/8 right there. Okay, let's go to this one. Now we're looking at eighth notes, so our quarter note becomes 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we have another group of 3, and then we have a group of 4. Well, perfect. 7/8 time. And now time to look at the last one. Okay, so this one's a little more intimidating. We have a dotted eighth note, we have a 16th note, we have dotted quarter note. Okay, so I'm going to think eighth notes, just to be safe. I haven't really dealt with a lot of 16 time signatures, and it looks like 4 might cause maybe some half things and some problems, so I'm going to go with 8. Okay, so I turn each one of my eighth notes into 1 again, and again that cancels out, so I'm just going to count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 eighth notes. That's 2, so 7, 8, 9. Some 16th notes, so 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That works out perfectly. I've never seen 9/8 though, so I mean, well, what else could it be? Let's think. We half it, 4.5 over 4, no, definitely not. Double it, we have 18 over 16. Oh, it just seems really weird. So, 9/8. If we think furthermore at the pulse, 9/8 is a compound triple time signature. So being compound triple, we have these 3 dotted quarter notes, or your 9/8 notes written like this. So they're in groups of 3, and there's 3 of them. That concludes Name the Time Signature number 2. Let me know how you did in the comments below.